Welcome back, drawing buddies. This week we draw Dracula, or really just a vampire, but I like the Dracula logo, so we threw it on here. We're going to go from pencils to inks to colors. So if that sounds like something you want to do with me, let's draw. Also, I apologize, my voice is extra special raspy this week, but the video has to get done, so with or without my voice, we have to record it, so let's do it. Like I said, this was gonna be Dracula, and then kind of turned into a vampire, but then I liked the Dracula logo, so I said, we'll just call it Dracula because it looks better in the thumbnail, I guess. But really, this was an experiment in coloring. I started watching some coloring tutorials, and I wanted to up my color game, and October was coming, so I said, let's try with a vampire, because we could do blue skin and just a weird angle and just go all out and have some fun. So that's what we did with this one. Plus, when I was a kid, I was always into the whole mythology of vampires and the living forever and the being up all night and sleeping all day kind of thing. I was never a morning person. I was always a night kind of person. So I always sympathized with the vampires. I remember when I was like 17 or 18 years old, there was a bookstore in New Haven. It's still there. I forgot the name of it. But they used to be open to like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I would go down there and get a coffee with a friend, and we'd walk around New Haven, and we would go to the bookstore, and it was 2 floors at the time. I think it's only 1 floor now. And they had a encyclopedia of vampires, and I was like, oh, this is like the coolest thing ever. So I bought that thing. I still have it somewhere. I gotta find it. And yeah, it just told you about all kinds of fictional vampires, alleged real vampires, and told the stories. And it was really darn cool. The pencils for this one, I changed things up a bunch of times because I wanted that up angle and I wasn't really getting it. And finally I got something I was happy with, and we went with it. And damn, I sound terrible. I am so sorry for this, people. But, if I don't record it today, it's not going to be up by Friday, so it's going to be done. And hopefully I'm going to put off the recording of the next 3 videos, really. I got them all done till next week, and hopefully I'll sound better by then, because the drawings are done, the videos are edited, they just don't have any voiceovers. Plus, vampires kind of indirectly got me into comics. The first comic I bought was an X-Men 234 first superhero book. It had Wolverine changing into the Brood, and I saw that on the newsstand. I thought it was the coolest drawing ever. So I bought it. I've told this story before. And it was awesome, but I really wasn't buying comics regularly. And then me and my uncle, Uncle Butch, we've talked about him before. We told the sad Uncle Butch vampire story in the last video, which I'll probably retell in this video because it's more appropriate. But we went to see The Lost Boys. He took me to see The Lost Boys when it came out, 1987, 86, whatever the hell it was. I'm pretty sure it was 87. And I rewatched The Lost Boys for this video too, so we'll talk about that a little later. And there's the whole thing with the comic shop and the Frog Brothers. And they give Corey Feldman's character, Sam, comic books to teach him about the vampires, and he's a comic collector. And so after we saw the movie, me and my uncle were talking about it, and he's like, I wouldn't mind reading some vampire comic books. I bet there's some good vampire comics out there. I said, yeah, I wouldn't mind getting some comics too, because at the time we were doing baseball cards, because that's what every growing boy was doing back in the late 80s, was buying baseball cards. And we were driving back from the movie theater, and I just happened to see out of the corner of my eye a sign for a comic thing. I don't know if it was the same day we saw Lost Boys or next week or whatever, but it was in that time frame. And it was the Cabana, the comic Cabana, Richie's Comic Cabana. And it was tiny. It was probably just a little bit bigger than the room I'm recording this in. Might even be the same size. And, they had tables with boxes on them, and he had a glass case. And I remember there was a guy looking at comics who actually works there now. He's been working there forever. I won't dox him, but you're awesome, Eric. And it was funny because he had a bunch of old Batmans in the case, and I said, oh, do you have Batman 14? Because in The Lost Boys, they talk about Corey Feldman. Sam asks if they have a copy of Batman 14, and the Frog Brothers like, it's a very serious book, man. There's only 5 out there. And Sam, Corey Feldman goes, 4 actually. I'm always on the lookout for the other 3. I might have those numbers mixed up, by the way. And so I just jokingly said, hey, do you have Batman 14 like in the Lost Boys? And Richie's like, actually, I did have it, but we got robbed and somebody stole it. And yeah, so like, wow. He's like, there's not really 5 of those books out there. And they did eventually get it back. They caught the guy. He pawned it or something. And so that was cool. But yeah, so since then, ever since then, I've been going back to Richie's Comic Cabana. So that's 1987. So what's that, 33 years? I mean, I don't go there all the time. Sometimes I don't go there for months. Sometimes even a year. And sometimes Richie busts my balls about it. And I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm probably not your best customer. In fact, I know I'm not your best customer. But I guarantee I'm one of the oldest, if not the oldest. So, you know, Richie's a good guy. So I'm glad he's had a store this long and he's been able to serve the community this long. So here on the vampire, I'm getting the shape together. And I kind of go all in on the box looking up at you kind of look. And I kind of dig it. It works for this one. I wouldn't say this would work all the time. But, you know, for this vampire, I love it. And I started watching tutorials on coloring because there were certain things I wanted to do. And I was like feeling things were looking a little bit flat. And I do not love gradients overall. But I watched a few and, you know, just throwing a subtle gradient here and there or putting a lighter color around his eyes and just having the big open mouth and the red behind him. I don't know, I just think even though it's extremely simple and I didn't go all in, this is before I started trying out those filters and stuff. I drew this thing like 2 months ago. And I just figured I'd save it for October. And then it ended up being the last one. This is the Halloween drawing. And it's finally coming out. So it's kind of like the prototype for my experimenting with coloring. Like the next 2 are a bit more simple, but, you know, they pull together. Like the All Might, you know, I stuck more to the flatter colors because it's an anime. And the Velma, I only did like 1 level of shading because she didn't need it because it's a nice, simple, cool drawing of Velma just kind of standing there looking Velma-ish. And then the Wolverine has a little more to him. I did some gradients and stuff like that and the rim lighting and all that stuff. So he's a cool one. Can't wait till you see that one. But it's like 4 weeks out at this point. I'm trying to stay ahead on these videos because I have electric heat and it's going to be cold in here sometimes when I'm doing these voiceovers. And if I get sick like this again, it's going to be awful because all my videos will sound like this and you guys definitely won't want to watch them. Plus, I'm kind of curious how a video like this will do because it's really, I mean, I put Dracula on the thing like I mentioned earlier, but it's really just a generic vampire with a Union Jack kind of shirt for some reason. I figured he should be a British vampire. So I'm wondering if anybody will actually care about something like this because it doesn't really have a brand name or an IP behind it. It's just a vampire. And if people do, I might actually do some more, well, not often, but every now and then an original idea. Like I have some fairies that I've drawn that I think are super cool. And I wouldn't mind sharing them with you if you want to see something like that or just like a comic character I created when I was like 12 years old who's kind of ridiculous and not very cool, but, you know, it'd be fun to draw it again. Or some characters that friends of mine have made up. I'm sure they would like to see that. Like my friend at Camp Kill, he made up some really cool characters, and one of his characters I used to draw all the time, his name was Buttonhead. He's fun to draw. So I just kind of wonder if you guys would be interested in seeing more original content instead of just other IP stuff. I mean, I'd still draw things like Wolverine and stuff. It's just, you know, every once in a while sprinkling something a little original or a little more original and cool or whatever popped in my head. Like, oh, if I draw the bunny, that might scare some of you off. But he's the character that if I would figure out how to write a comic, it would be the bunny. You could see him if you find my Instagram and stuff like that, which I'll probably put a link in this video. I've been starting to do that because, you know, you can't really be an artist and hide who you are. It just doesn't really work that way. Also, I actually broke 500 subs on YouTube, so thank you everybody who has subbed and watches these videos. I appreciate it. So now we just got to get the hours up, so start watching the long videos so we could get to that 3,000 hour thing. That seems like an insurmountable goal at this point, but let's have faith and let's get it done. Actually, I've been on Instagram since Instagram was a thing. My Instagram name's only 4 letters, FMM3. So that's how long I've had it for, and I have more subs on YouTube in 6 months than I've ever gotten on Instagram. Although honestly, I don't really post regularly on Instagram. Although I'm gonna start. In fact, I gotta save all these pictures as JPEGs so I could post them all on Instagram. I'll start doing like one a day or one a week or something, and maybe that'll help. But yeah, my Instagram will be linked in the thing, so go check that out. And one of you guys, one of the subs here, who comments on a lot of my shorts, they asked for a shout out, and I don't see why I shouldn't do that. And their name is Tamuka. I hope I'm saying that right, Tamuka. If you watch any of my videos, you know I'm terrible at names. You got a little Santa Claus dog as your icon, and I really appreciate the comments and you following and you actually caring about what's going on here. So there's your shout out. Thank you very much, Tamuka. And if I'm pronouncing it wrong, please correct me and put it phonetically something in one of the comments when you see this, because I'm hoping you will. And next time you comment on something, I'll see where... Oop, shoot. I hit the mic stand. But you'll see where I'll put a timestamp next time I see you comment on something, and let me know. Yeah, so I went way off track on the whole comic thing, and so me and Uncle Butch found the Comic Cabana. So Uncle Butch asked about vampire comics, and oh, sorry, again, done with the pencils. Now it's time to ink Dracula, or the generic blue vampire that I drew, who looks fun and ridiculous. So, like any drawing, the inking goes super fast on this one. But my screwing around with the colors is what takes forever on this guy. And that's why it's a 36-minute video instead of a 26-minute video. But yeah, so Uncle Butch asked about vampire comics, so they pointed him in the direction of the magazines, and he bought some Vampirella comics. And I bought some X-Men, and I think a Spider-Man. And at one point, Uncle Butch had like, they used to give these cardboard boxes at grocery stores, and they were pretty big. And he just had 1 or 2 of those just full of Vampirellas, all different ones, because we buy them at flea markets, because we go to flea markets on Sundays. Or he'd buy them at the comic shop, or, you know, wherever he saw one, he would just buy them and read them. And the art in those things were pretty darn cool. You had Frazetta covers and painted covers. And the interior, they were a little racy for a young kid, but they were beautifully drawn. The original Vampirellas. And they just disappeared. I don't know what the hell happened to him. He probably sold them. He had a habit of just randomly selling things and not telling anybody. Like, we had a really nice baseball card collection, and I had a bunch of Pete Rose cards. For some reason, I latched on to Pete Rose, even though I never watched baseball. And I got pretty much every Pete Rose card up to 1980 whatever, except for his rookie card. I had his second year up, and I had them all in a binder. And one day I went down in the basement, because Uncle Butch lived in our basement. And I said, Butch, where's the baseball cards? I want to check out my Pete Roses. He just laughed, like, oh, I sold those things years ago. So yeah, he just took every baseball card we ever bought in like 5-6 years of collecting and sold them all to some random store for no particular reason. But yeah, he would do things like that. And that included my Pete Roses. It was also kind of crappy because he had a really cool collection of Yankees. He used to buy, every time we went to the card store, he would buy one Yankees card from the 50s. And he was putting a whole set together. But, oh well. Can't do anything about that now. So I watched The Lost Boys for this video. I was going to watch The Lost Boys, and I was going to watch another vampire movie called Near Dark, which I mentioned in the other video and told a little Uncle Butch story about. He loved that movie. And it wasn't available for the longest time. And After he died, I finally found out that it was re-released, and I bought it. And watch the other video if you want to know. But anyway, so I went to watch it for this video, and it's one of those movies that says unavailable. You can't rent it. It's not streaming anywhere. I'm sure if I dug deep, I could find a rip of it or something, or a torrent, or a bootleg, but I haven't done that in years, and I didn't really feel like doing it. So if we talk about Near Dark, it'll be from memory. But I did watch The Lost Boys. And The Lost Boys is kind of weird. I haven't watched it in a really long time. I mean, I had it on DVD back in the day, and it was always a movie that I watched, not regularly, but every so often, because I had good memories of it. But watching it now, I think it still holds up. It's very 80s. They make some very 80s fashion choices with Corey Haim's wardrobe. And you could tell that it was shot before the shaky cam became a thing, because they have a lot of wide shots that pan in and follow cars or the vampires flying towards things from their point of view, and the camera is shaky as all heck. And back then, I guess there was no image stabilization or shaky cams, and they definitely didn't use drones for flybys, so you could tell that it was just a big camera and a helicopter just shaking away. And it kind of bothered me. I don't know why. But it's the first thing that popped in my mind. It's like, damn, these guys need a shaky cam. But the music in it's great. There's a cool cover of People Are Strange by The Doors, by Echo and the Bunnymen. So if you check out the soundtrack to the movie, it's kind of cool. But again, it's very 80s. And it's just very 80s situation. Kids being out all night in a amusement park. And the murder capital of the world, they call it. Santa Clara. It's a fictional town. The lead vampire, David, is played by Kiefer Sutherland. He hams it up the whole time, but plays it very straight. One of the other vampires is played by Alex Winters, Bill from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, so that's kind of fun to see him as a vampire. Another one of the vampires was played by a guy named Billy Worth. The only reason I know his name, and I don't even know why I remember it, but he was in a bunch of late night Cinemax movies back in the day that kids shouldn't have been watching but stayed up late to watch anyway. Then the lead protagonist, I guess, would be Michael. He's played by Jason Patric. And Jason Patric and all the vampire stuff, it's very stoic and very serious and very, moody and dark. But anytime it's Corey Haim and the Frog Brothers, it's really lighthearted and funny, so there's big tone shifts out of nowhere in the movie. Like, there's one part where, Michael's already becoming a vampire because Michael's trying to get him to join, not Michael, David's trying to get Michael to join the gang. Keeping all these names together, it's hell. And so they go to save Star, the girl vampire, who Michael kind of fell for, which got him in this mess of turning into a vampire in the first place. And he goes to save her from the underground cavern hotel ballroom thing that the vampires live in. And that part's very serious, but while you got that going on with Michael trying to find Star and the kid, you got the Frog Brothers and Sam, Corey Haim, just going through this tunnel, making jokes and staking a vampire and getting covered in glitter blood and stuff. So, there's a lot of weird tone shifts in that movie, but I love it. It's great. There's another good horror movie with Corey Haim called Silver Bullet. It's a werewolf movie, and he plays a kid in a wheelchair. And I don't remember anything about the movie, so we're not going to talk about it. But I'm going to rewatch it because it literally just popped into my head that it even exists. The grandfather in the movie, he's kind of funny, too. He's kind of just a silly old man doing silly old man things. And he kind of reminds me of Uncle Butch a little bit watching the movie. But, yeah. So it's basically about a family. The mom divorced the husband. She just leaves with nothing. She just moves to her father's place in Santa Clara, as I mentioned earlier, the fictional murder capital of the world. They have this really cool boardwalk with rides and stuff, and it's cool hangout. Something that probably really wouldn't be all that popular exists today, which kind of makes me sad to think about. And so they move in with her father to start over again. She gets a job in the local video store, ran by, I forgot the guy's name. So Doesn't really matter. Well, it does, because he's a big part of the plot. Because she starts dating him and stuff, and and then Michael and Sam, they go to this concert thing, and Sam catches this girl star out of the corner of his eyes. And he chases after her, but that's Michael's girl. But Michael, David, instead of murdering Michael like he does pretty much everybody else in the movie who crosses him, decides to have a little fun with him and tries to get him to join them and everything. And there's a scene where Michael's still regular human, and he brings them to their little hideout underground. It's this really cool like ballroom from a hotel that apparently sunk into a fault line. There's a giant poster of Jim Morrison on the back, and big chandelier. And he sends Alex Winters out to get food, and he brings Chinese food back. And so he's like, "Here, Michael, have some rice." So Michael's eating the rice, and he's like, "How's it taste, Michael?" He's like, "Oh, it's fine." It's like, "Well, you're eating maggots." And he looks in, and it's all maggots in there. It's like, "Oh, gross." He drops it on the ground, spits it out, but then he sees that it's just rice. And then he hands him some noodles, says, "I'm sorry about that. Here, have some noodles." And the noodles look like worms. And he's like, "Oh, that's gross." And Star's like, "Stop messing with him, Michael. It's not funny." And he's just laughing. He's like, "What's the matter, Michael? You don't like your noodles?" And then he has him drink some wine, but the wine is really his blood, and it turns him into a fledgling vampire. This one has like the myth where you're not a full vampire until you kill somebody or you drink blood, which Michael never gets a chance to do. And if you kill the head vampire, then all the fledgling vampires who haven't drank blood yet turn back to human. There's many vampire myths out there, and they all work in very different ways. But that's how this one works. So they try to find the head vampire. So first they think it's the guy who owns the video store that Mom works at, and they try to give him garlic and holy water, and nothing works on him. But it doesn't work because, spoilers, they invited him into the house. Once you invite a vampire into your home, you have no power over them. But they figure he's not the vampire because none of that stuff worked, and they didn't know the whole inviting him into the house thing. But, yeah, that's the thing. So then they switch to David. But after David and his gang attack the house after the whole thing I talked about earlier in the cavern with Star, nothing changes. David doesn't turn back. But Mom shows up with her date, the guy from the video store. And he takes off his glasses, and he's like, "I'm very disappointed. And, I told these kids." It turns out he was the head vampire. And since they invited him into the house, the thing didn't work. The garlic and all that stuff. And the grandpa just randomly shows up and drives his car through the wall and drives a wooden spike through him. And then Star and David and Laddie, the little kid vampire, turn back to normal. And everybody lives happily ever after. And that's probably the worst summary review of The Lost Boys ever put down. But I could barely talk, and I feel terrible. So I apologize, but I don't want to miss a video week. So I haven't missed one since I started in late March, and we're not missing one now. Yeah, and that's pretty much the inks for the vampire. So we're going to move on to the colors. So the colors on the vampire really what took a little while, because I tried some new things, and I actually cut a lot of it out because you guys didn't need to see me just messing around and making mistakes and starting over again. So there's some weird jump cuts in the colors, and sorry about that. And I also had to learn how to use this gradient tool properly in Clip Studio, because it works differently than it does in Photoshop. And also, this is before I learned about the whole coloring layer thing, so I had to kind of do a lot of weird selections and stuff to make things work. But yep, I really like the colors on this one. That's I almost was not gonna post it, and then I'm like, I gotta post it. I drew it, and I'm like, but I kept putting it off for other things because, like I said, I knew October was coming, and I wanted to do horror month, which in retrospect was a bad idea because Jason did very well, But the Leatherface video was awful. I think it's because I used a word I shouldn't have used in the descriptions, and it made it kind of get blacklisted. But we'll never know, because I just totally just abandoned the video and didn't do any more shorts off it after 2 days of literally no views. And that seemed to work, so we're just going to move on and pretend that never happened. But the vampire has no weird keywords, so we should be okay with him. Another vampire movie that Uncle Butch really liked a lot was Fright Night, the original one. I'm blanking out on everything that happened in it, pretty much, except for it starred the kid from Gremlins. And I forgot who played the vampire, but he was really cool. And basically a suave guy moves in next door. And kid's convinced there's something wrong with him. He's a vampire. So he enlists the help of like a TV show host of a vampire show, late night talk show thing that he thinks will know about vampires, to help him stop the vampire, and it just goes off the rails. And the vampire kidnaps his girlfriend at the end, and they go to save her. And I just remember the part where he pulls out the cross and he holds it up to him, and the vampire starts laughing, and he crushes the cross in his hand, and he's like, "You have to have faith for that to work," in the guy's name. And that just stuck in my head, because apparently if you don't have faith in the symbols you're using, then they're not really going to do anything against the vampire. I thought that was a pretty cool twist. But the holy water did burn the hell out of him, so that worked. There was a remake of Fright Night that came out not that long ago. I say that thinking it wasn't, but it was before the pandemic, so it's at least 5-6 years ago. My ability to judge time is drifting with age, I tell you. But that's one where I just randomly put on Facebook, "Hey, I'm thinking of going to see Fright Night tonight. Anybody want to go?" And randomly, this kid I knew from back in the day, well, kid, he's older than me, and we're old, said, "I'll meet you there." And I ended up bringing my mother too. And Freddie didn't really sit with us, but it was cool seeing him and talking to him a little bit afterwards. And I brought my mother, because she loves these old movies and vampires and stuff, because, it's a family thing, her and Uncle Butch. Uncle Butch was her brother. I take her to see all the horror movies, and she's getting old and doesn't always understand what's going on, but she still likes going. And so yeah, it was nice seeing you. So Freddie, thanks for coming to that movie, even though we didn't talk much. It was nice seeing you, bud. But yeah, that one had David Tennant, the guy who played Doctor Who, the most popular Doctor Who, even though my favorite Doctor Who was I totally am blanking out his name. Oh, yeah, it was Matt Smith. Matt Smith was, he's my favorite Doctor. But David Tennant played they made him a magician host in the new Fright Night and the Vampire Hunter guy. So that was fun. Anton Yelchin was in it. He left us too soon, that guy. He died in some kind of accident. My son really liked him. There was a movie he was in, what was it called? I'm not going to remember, so we're not even going to talk about it. But he really liked him as an actor too, so we were a little sad when we found out he died. Plus, he was in Star Trek. He was Chekhov in the new movies. And I'm kind of a nerd, and I love Star Trek, so maybe someday I'll draw a Star Trek thing. Oh, sure, nobody will watch that. But it'll be fun for me. I'll draw Captain Sisko or something. Because Sisko in Deep Space Nine, that was my Star Trek. Oh, and going back to taking my mother to movies, I took her to see Nosferatu. It's definitely a weird movie to watch your mother, the ending and stuff. A lot of nudity and things. But anyway, I took her to see it, and I didn't love it. I mean, it just felt like a drawn out, less fun version of Bram Stoker's Dracula, because Nosferatu is basically a ripoff of Dracula. They wanted to make a Dracula movie. The estate said no back in 1920, whatever. And so they made Nosferatu, and Stoker's family sued, and they won, and they were supposed to destroy all the prints of Nosferatu. But of course, people didn't destroy all the prints, and they found one in Brazil or whatever, and they have been having screenings of it ever since, and it's become a cult classic. And there's been remakes before. There was like one in the 70s, but I think it was like a remake of Making the Movie. It's all meta and weird, but I never saw it, so don't quote me on that. And then there's this one. And I just thought the makeup was too much, and the Bill Skarsgård, I couldn't understand anything he was saying with the bear growling accent and all that stuff. And it was just, what's his name? The guy who plays Craven the Hunter, a movie I haven't seen. And he was he was Quicksilver in the Avengers movie. What's his name? I don't know. But he was really good in it. So had that. And Lily Rose Depp, I think her name was. She was good. But the movie was just drab and long, and I didn't love it. Most people did, I guess, but it wasn't for me. But then again, I don't really get into horror movies much these days either, so that doesn't help. But it's a vampire movie, so I figured I should mention it here. And if my word means anything, then I wouldn't watch it. But I'm clearly not an expert movie reviewer. And if I do actually start doing movie reviews, I'm going to have to at least write some kind of script with a timeline, because it's going off the top of my head thing, and not being very linear about it does not make for a good movie review. The last real set of books I read were the Anne Rice Vampire Chronicles and all the adjacent books around it. So, Interview with a Vampire, Vampire Lestat, Queen of the Damned, the other ones, which I can't remember the names of, then Merrick, and I think there's a book was there a book about Armand? I don't remember. But and Servant of the Bones, even though that's not part of the Vampire Chronicles and all those, I read those, and I just remember reading the Vampire Lestat, and I like this guy. If you read his little intro in the first paragraph where he describes himself, you're either going to love Lestat or you're going to hate Lestat, and you're not going to enjoy the books. But I love Lestat, even though I don't remember much of the books. But he was turned into a vampire in, I think, the 1700s, 1800s. So he wasn't really an old vampire, but he was very powerful as a vampire, because vampires in that universe, they get old. As they get older, they get stronger. Or if they drink the blood of elder vampires, they get even stronger. And for whatever reason, he was able to drink the blood of the queen. She was kind of catatonic for centuries, thousands of years. And something in him woke her up, and she allowed him to drink his blood. So he was a very strong young vampire. And it goes through all that. The whole Vampire Lestat, and Armand was cool. He was played by Antonio Banderas in the movie, but in the books he was more of a child vampire, like teens. Brad Pitt played Lewis in the movies. Christian Slater, who we talked about in the Supergirl video, he was the reporter who was interviewing Lewis in the movie Interview with a Vampire, Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt and all that stuff. And there's a TV show for those books. They were on AMC. I kind of keep wanting to watch them, and then I forget about them. And then I want to watch them, and then I forget about them. So maybe after doing this video, I'll go back and see where I could stream those now, because I don't think they're on AMC anymore. I think they made it to Netflix. So I'll check that out, because I think they might actually have time jumped and gotten to the whole Vampire Lestat thing. Because in the Vampire Lestat, he wakes up and he decides he's going to become a rock star. It's kind of fun and ridiculous, and we all know I like ridiculous. So, and then of course there is Near Dark, Uncle Butch's favorite vampire movie, which we talked about. And I mentioned earlier in this video 3 times and said I would talk about, and I didn't talk about. So I'm just running circles around Near Dark. But Near Dark is about a group of vampires who just come into a small town, and they try turning a young rancher into a vampire, and they just cause all kinds of mayhem. And Bill Paxton's in it, and he's kind of fun, and Lance Hendrickson, and I forgot the girl's name, but she was in a lot of 80s movies, and she was really cool. And I tried to watch it, and it's not available. And I didn't bother to look for a torrent or anything, so I asked my son if he still had the DVD. He did not, so I was not able to watch Near Dark for this video, so I was kind of sad about that, because it's one that I really wanted to check out and talk about, and I don't remember enough about it to do a full thing. So, sorry about that, guys. I will draw another vampire and talk about Near Dark, because I know you're all waiting on bated breath to hear all about Near Dark. So, go find it, watch it, Read a synopsis of it. It's a good movie. It has the whole synthy 80s soundtrack going on. It's good stuff. It's also another example of how they used to make really cool movies in the 80s with very low budgets. And they didn't look cheap or cheesy. They were just cool. You know, the script spoke for itself. And they did what they had to do to get it down on film. They used practical effects and blew things up. And it was cool. And they should get back to that kind of movie making where it's more about the story than the visuals. I could get behind that. What about you guys? If any of y'all out there are thinking of making YouTube videos, I encourage it. It's cool. It's fun. Makes you feel like you're accomplishing something sometimes. But do not try doing voiceovers when you are not feeling good and have no voice. It is awful. It hurts. It's taken me 3 times as long to do this as it should have. And I just want to apologize to all you for having to listen to me sound like this. And if it bothered you, let me know. If it didn't, cool, because my next video is probably going to sound a little hoarse too. Hopefully not this bad though. But I do got to get those done because they're all drawn and ready to go. I also just realized this video is almost over and I didn't talk about the Blade movies. I love the Blade movies. You know, plus Blade doesn't get the credit for jump-starting the MCU that he should. But he's definitely a pre-Iron Man movie, and it definitely made money and encouraged people to make more superhero movies. But that's for another day. Thank you for stopping by. Go out and draw something, like, subscribe, and all that other fun stuff. And I'll see you next week, and hopefully I'll sound a lot better than this. Thanks for watching.